Hello, everybody, and welcome back to this episode of Awaken with Lauren Wilde. I'm your host, Lauren Wilde, and I'm excited to share some transmissions that have been coming through for me as I've been doing a lot of coaching for the astrology of 2025. Been doing a bunch of 2025 readings, and I keep coming up against some pretty core themes. And I wanted to share specifically one of them because I think that it is going to be a really, really, really important theme that we're going to see over and over and over in 2025. And that is going to be self-concept. And I want to talk a little bit about what self-concept work is, how it works, why it's important, and why I think it's getting brought up so much. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. I'm a professional astrologer. I'm a shamanic practitioner and teacher. I'm a founder and owner of a modern mystery school, and everything that I teach is through the lens of divine feminine principles. So with all of that in mind, I want to just let you know that the thing about astrology is that astrology is a language. It is a language and a tool of understanding how to speak the language of energy and consciousness. And it is largely, in my opinion, predicated on about 75% of history, looking in the past, the events, the archetypes, the symbolism, and maybe 25% like projection into the future based on what's happening in current times, and then what it could look like based on what's trending, right? So with that in mind, we want to really bring awareness to, in my opinion, the first quarter of 2025. It is going to start off with a bang. And I'm recording this in mid-December of 2024, but I think that this pod will stand the test of time for probably 6 months to a year. My guides have been very clear about wanting to make sure that I talk about this teaching of self-concept. So personally, I believe, I have a core belief that when we are aligned personally in our most authentic center, when we are aligned in our truth, we are divinely guided and protected. I really believe that, with my whole heart. And so why I think that matters is because this year, Aries, early Aries is going to get pummeled, and late Pisces. There's quite a few reasons for that. But there's going to be 3 different planets that ingress, meaning move into 0 degrees of, 2 that move into Aries. And then we're going to have the North Node pass through 0 degrees of Aries into the final degrees of Pisces just by the end of the first quarter. We're going to have an eclipse at 8 degrees of Aries in March. We're going to have a Venus retrograde in Aries in March, April. We're going to have a Mercury retrograde in Aries. It's big. And as a native with an Aries moon, I feel like it is my responsibility as a channel to put out this PSA on all things Aryan. So Aries is the first zodiac sign in astrology. It says I am. It is ruled by the ram. Its color is red. Its metal is iron, and its ruler is Mars. And everything about Aries is instinctive. It is truly I have to move. It talks about the individual. It talks about being assertive. It talks about taking action and initiative. It's the first zodiac sign. It's also about being brave. It's about stepping out first. All the fire signs are initiators. They're all about leadership and stepping out and up, but especially Aries with being the leader that goes first. So as a person that put myself out, what I would consider to be one of the first in the industry that I was in, which was merging witchcraft and evangelical deconstruction. I was one of the very first people that put myself out there and ran with this church witch concept. And it served me well. Eventually it kind of became like a persona of mine instead of the whole shtick. But essentially, like it benefited me to feel in my body that instinctual feel of like danger is coming. And that's Aries. Aries is the warrior of the zodiac. It is the one that has its head, to the ground, and it's listening for enemies. It's sensing for threats and ready to pull back the bow, ready to aim and shoot. It does rule firearms, by the way, and the military and the police force. And so it is very much about protection and taking a stand and dominance. And it's the emperor in the tarot card archetype. And so I'm just trying to set like a little bit of what are some of these like general undertones, all right, of Aries, because we're going to talk so much about Aries. Again, remember, it is first cardinal fire. It is like, let's go. And specifically those early degrees. So from 0 to 7 degrees to 8 degrees of Aries, because of that eclipse. Those are like the big degrees. I would maybe even give it 10 because that's where Venus retrograde is going to start, is at 10 degrees of Aries. So if you have any aspects that are from 0 to 10 degrees of Aries, Libra, Cancer, or Capricorn, they're going to get activated this year. Okay. Now, let's start getting to how Aries and self-concept merge. So Aries is the self. It is also the ruler of the first sign in the zodiac wheel. It is all about self, my image, how you see me, my biggest compulsions of like how I want the world to see me. Your rising sign is what you would look to in astrology to get a sense of what that is. That's like the book to your cover, the cover of your book. I'm sorry, dyslexia. But when we think about Aries, it is about self, not us. It is the me, not we. Okay. It is me. And we've been getting a big dose of Aries medicine for about 2 years now. We had our first eclipse at 29 degrees of Aries in spring of 2023. And that like kicked us into gear. That was the first one in Aries. And then we had all of our major Aries eclipses last year in 2024. And we have our last Aries eclipse on March 29th, Eastern Standard Time of 2025 at 8 degrees of Aries. It's a solar eclipse, so it's calling something new in a new era of what? Self. And, I have been in the industry of helping people reinvent themselves for years now. And one of the main things that we work on in the work together is self-concept. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start merging into self-concept work. And what is it? So self-concept work is exactly what it sounds like, not to overcomplicate it, but in the world of manifestation, law of attraction, law of assumption, when we're trying to manifest something and we're, dealing with blockages, usually it has to do with a poor self-concept. There is no like sense of self. There is no sense of individuality. And what makes us individual is our passions, our desires, our joy, our dreams, our hopes, our values. And so often, especially because I tend to work with female identified folks, especially that came out of, high control religion backgrounds, is that they have been told their whole lives that it's selfish to be themselves. It's selfish to have their own dreams, their own desires, their own wants, their own longings. And in self-concept work, we really have to reclaim our identities. And mostly what that looks like is shedding all of the programming that has happened over our lives that told us who we were supposed to be instead of giving us permission to be who we want to be. And in astrology, I say this is like your factory settings. Okay. Everybody has factory settings. But once you know your factory settings, then you can start to craft a setting that is more unique and personalized to the experience of life you want to have. And welcome to quantum leaping and narrative work. So when we're, wanting to architect a new reality that we're wanting to embody, for example, I was a stay-at-home mom. I had 3 kids in 4.5 years. I developed a major thyroid issue. I had very low self-esteem, very poor sense of self-concept. I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know how I wanted to do it. I knew I wanted to help people, but what helping people looked like was me losing myself in the process of trying to unconsciously gain validation from other people instead of me knowing who I am and tapping into my core sense of value. Me knowing I have so much to bring to the table. And in order to do things that are really important, like set boundaries and uphold boundaries, we have to have some sort of concept of our own sense of value. And they all kind of feed into each other because in order, to have value, you have to have a sense of concept. In order to have concept, you have to have a sense of value. So they very much feed into it. And I would say after 7 years of doing this work, one-on-one, working with groups of people, our inherent sense of worthiness as individuals, in my opinion, is the number one thing we actually have to work with. And so in saying all of that, we want to make sure that we are stop, right? Stop and recognize where is the me and the we. And the last 1.5 years specifically with the South Node, which is the karmic release of Libra, and the North Node in Aries of self and the individuation process, we have been getting hit so hard with becoming aware of our codependency, becoming aware of self-sacrificing to be validated by external sources. We have become so aware of what are toxic relationships that lack reciprocity and balance. We've become so aware of, I don't know who I am. What is me? Who is me? What do I want? And this is the pump that has been primed for really 2 years. And we're going to come back to it in a new way and a new lens in 2025. All right. So those are some of the just basic things. When we're working with self-concept, we're working with things like, I have so much to bring to the table. I am beautiful. I am smart. I am intelligent. I have a heart of service. I am passionate about empowering people. I'm a great teacher. I have wise insights. I work really hard to be grounded. I'm active. I love my family. These are all identifiers of self-concept. But when we bring self-concept into quantum work or reinvention work, what we have to do is we really have to get to the place where we recognize what concept of self is no longer aligned and needs to be released and shed. And we need to let it die and appreciate all versions of self that have got us here today. But what version of self are we wanting to put life force energy into, right? So in 2025, I'm moving into hardcore founder energy. I want to move into a higher level of this work. And so in order to do that, I'm doing a lot of self-concept work around what it means to be a millionaire founder, what it looks like to be a millionaire tech developer, what it would, feel like to have $1 million coming through my bank account every month. And I'm going to be honest, I do this work and I have limits there. I have internal blockages that have to be dealt with. That's a lot of what self-concept work is about, is recognizing this is who I've been. This is where I want to shift my timeline into. This is the version of myself that I want to be. Here are some of the things that we would embody if we were those people. So you start asking yourself all right, what would a millionaire do on a Monday morning when they've got an extra hour because somebody canceled? Would a multimillionaire on a Monday morning do nothing? Would a multimillionaire check through their emails or look at their ROI or make sure their bank account is oriented well? Like, what would they do on 9 a.m. on a Monday morning when someone canceled? In my opinion, maybe not like a well-established millionaire. Like they're just like, I don't do that. I have my administration do that. In my mind, I'm like, I need to take that extra hour to put it towards looking at my financial portfolio, looking at some sort of skill that I need to develop, reaching out to one of my collaboration partners. I'm in work hours, right? 9 to 5. I'm in work hours. So how am I scheduling my work hours? So those are kinds of like examples of, say, for example, you are, wanting to become an astrologer and you've got an extra hour. You start to ask yourself, what would an astrologer do with an extra hour to grow their business? Would they read for an hour? Would they spend time moving through their ephemeris for an hour? Would they pull cards and get some clear ideas about what's coming up in the month, like themes? Would they post on social media to get some new clientele? What would they be doing? The answer is what you decide. But ultimately, why this is important is because self-concept work is going to become a huge deal in 2025, especially, like I said, the first quarter. So I'll stop rambling and I'm going to start telling you some of the astrology points that are happening, what that means, and lastly, what to do about it. So when we get into the very beginning of the new year, Aries moves into, or the North Node, which is the collective destiny of everyone, moves into 0 degrees of Aries on January 1st. It moves into 29 degrees of Pisces on January 11th, and therein actually starts the next 2 years of the story of the North Node in Pisces and the South Node in Virgo. Very different than the North Node in Aries and the South Node in Libra. So, what has been self and relationships, independence, codependency, individual and marriage, all of those topics that have been coming up the last 2 years are going to start to shift into things like spirituality, compassion, oneness, the growth of how spirituality may start to come through the collective lens more and more. And then Virgo is very much about health, like our Medicare and our health industry and things like viruses and vaccines and public health related issues and life coaches and health coaches and chiropractors. All of that is very Virgo, all right? When COVID actually happened in the States, it happened during the Virgo full moon. The world shut down during the Virgo full moon. I'm going to talk about that in length in my free upcoming 2025 astrology webinar class. You'll see that in the link below. Make sure you register. It's free. Just come. But when it comes to this core thing of self-concept, what's going to happen very shortly is that we are going to have the North Node move into the late degrees of Pisces, which is going to start to blur the lines and what has been all about self, North Node in Aries and independence and, taking action, becomes the most intense degree of Pisces, which is oneness. And it comes into a conjunction very quickly with Neptune. Okay. And then when we get to the end of March, we have a solar eclipse at 8 degrees of Aries, which is going to be right in line also with Neptune, huge planet, moving into 0 degrees of Aries, which will be within orb. And then 2 weeks later, we have Venus retrograde at 10 degrees of Aries. And then 2 weeks later, a little bit under 2 weeks after that, we have Mercury retrograde at 9 degrees of Aries. So like so much energy. And then once we get to summer, we have Saturn go through 0 degrees of Aries, which are different concepts. But here's what I need you guys to know. Anything that has been getting hit around the concept of authenticity, of what is my truth, is going to be rocked for anyone that has not been brave enough or taken the initiative to do what they need to do to get into personal alignment and personal truth. All right. So like if you know that you're like, I am dying in this job is killing me, it is not in alignment for me, like I know it, that's going to get tested. If you're in a relationship that is crumbling and it doesn't allow you to be truly who you are, that shit's going to get tested. If you are in a religion or you're in a community that is no longer aligned for you, like my friend, it is going to probably dissolve out of your life. And this brings me back to one of my core teachings, which is evolve or dissolve, baby. Like when you start moving into new forms of self-concept and you start to shift and change, your frequency changes. Your frequency changes, and everyone and your whole life that you were once vibing right here, when they come and interact with you and they feel how much you changed, they're like, oh my God, you changed. And you're like, yeah, I did. They have the choice to either evolve and grow in their frequency and meet you, or they will dissolve out of your life. And shit, Neptune is all about dissolution. Aries is all about authenticity. What is not authentic and in your personal truth is going to dissolve. This is a 16-year transit, all right? Neptune is in Aries for 16 years. It's not going anywhere. And that is like on the personal level of self. So Carl Jung, famous Swiss psychotherapist, he wrote literally the theory on individuation. And this is the journey of individuation. Aries is also the 0 card in tarot, and it represents the Fool archetype, also the Emperor, but it represents the Fool archetype. Like we're going into a whole new era, guys, and this is the Fool. And my question is like, how do you want to go into this new era? We've got Pluto moving into Aquarius, also bringing in a whole new era that's 20 years. We've got Neptune moving into Aries, which is like totally reinventing your self-concept. We've got Uranus moving into Gemini, which is going to uptick everyone's minds and grow our consciousness. We've got Saturn moving into Aries, which is really going to test us around what it means to be in our truth, to be aligned. And like in my world, like this is the work. When we're trying to do purpose alignment, the whole point is you. Like you. Are you happy? Do you have peace in your life? Is your soul calling you in some other direction, but you're afraid to go to the underworld? Trust me, I get it. I have been there. I built a whole business around it because I wish somebody would have been there to help me as I was navigating those very turbulent waters and in the underworld by myself. However, as we move into 2025, the parts of your life that you know that you are holding on to because you're just hoping it's gonna, you're just hoping it's just gonna hold. I don't know if it will. Maybe you'll get through it this year, but with the 2024 is full of lunar eclipses, and they are very intense. And in the Pisces Virgo axis, they are all about surrender and control. So, we just went from me, individuation, self-concept, to releasing codependency and unequally yoked relationship dynamics. And now we're moving into trust and a new form of faith and a new concept of self and surrender. Trust and surrender, big Pisces. Believing yourself, believing in yourself, Aries. And that South Node in Virgo is so much about purging, control and worry and obsession and OCD, aspects of wanting to hold on and wanting to have this perfect, picture of what we think it's going to be. And Pisces is just like, bro, just let it go. Let go and let God is what Pisces would say. And so I want you guys to know about this because it's going to be a major theme. This is what I'm going to be talking about so much, is that, in my opinion, if you are not in your truth, if you are not in alignment with yourself, with your calling, with your soul, with your personal truth and purpose calling, then you do open yourself up for possibly more dangerous lessons. I mean, we make sense of it all. The human condition is to, make meaning of suffering. We learn through experience. However, I would say that, doing the work of intuition and helping so many people connect to their core selves, when we are in alignment with ourselves, it is much easier to discern what is for us and what is not. So let me give you an example. If we continue to mask and we continue to try to force things to work because, South Node and Libra, we're afraid to be abandoned. We're afraid to be judged poorly. What we're doing is we are putting ourselves in environments and around people that technically might not be best for us, might not be aligned for us. And we subject our energy and our fields to frequencies that may be quite vampiric, that might be draining, that could even be deceptive or toxic. And so when we decide like that group is just not, I'm not supposed to be there. That's not an alignment for me. I need to release this in love and in surrender. And I need to fully get in Pono, which is, a Hawaiian teaching of alignment, spiritual alignment. I need to be in my truth. And this is no longer aligning for me. Then we really start to move very quickly towards anchoring in the version of ourselves that we're trying to architect. When we continue to try to hold on to the beliefs and the people and the places and the environments and the relationships that we know are no longer in alignment, we're really slowing ourselves down. And there's a lot of different things that happen there, And so my biggest encouragement to you during this time is to really take the time to ask yourself, what is no longer in alignment for me? See if you can actually do a practice of reflection, which will be very powerful next year when Venus and Mercury are retrograde in Aries. And we're going to be thinking so much about the time of the year that has been about September to January, because that is the degrees that the North and South Node were in that first decan of Aries and Libra. So we're going to be looking back over this third and fourth quarter of 2024 to make sense of first quarter 2025. So you may want to keep that in mind, but we're really going to be reflecting on all the versions of ourselves that have gotten us here and how we need to be so grateful for those versions of us because they got us here, and also release them and really choose to step over the threshold of this new version of self that you are architecting right now. And this is very quantum, it's very energetic, but it's also not. It's also deciding, who do I want to be? What is the highest version of me? What does my skin look like? What does my hair look like? What do I wear? What car am I driving? What does where I live look like? Am I still in America? Am I in Dubai? Do I have a partner? Do I not? All of these things are part of what I utilize in the Awaken method that I created, are called the anchor vision. And that is your big vision for life. And if you don't have one, you need one, because as the Bible said, people without vision perish, right? And so we need a big vision. The big vision allows us to recognize, and again, this is very Aries Neptune, it allows us to use it as a barometer to what we're saying yes and no to what is aligned and what is not. And when we have that big vision that we're super committed to, and we know that's my sacred yes, it allows us to recognize when people ask us hey, do you want to go get drinks with me? But part of your version of self is, I'm not drinking right now, I'm healing my liver. And you say yes, you just made a decision that cancels out your vision right now. So it's not like it's one time destroys it. It's just consecutive decisions add up and make up who we are here and now. And you're worth it. You're worth that version of you that you want. You're worth holding your boundaries. You're worth knowing your worth. You're worth being around and investing in people that are also not drinking right now so that you can, step into that version of you. And it all feeds into the same piece. And that is, who do you want to be? And what does that version of you do? How do they feel? How do they look? And if you're not there, then that's the work. And the work is every obstacle that comes up along the way, every relationship that gets challenged, every belief about yourself that gets challenged. That is actually the work. Am I worth that? Am I worth that? Am I settling right now? Am I saying yes to something that isn't actually my full body yes because I don't think there's anything better? Like, these are core self-concept ideas. So my hope is that this is inspiring to you. If you have any interest in this core self, concept work, the anchoring process, the awareness, the alignment, all of that is part of my Awaken method. I teach it and facilitate it in my 6-month group coaching course called Awaken. I will put the link down below. If you're interested in that, you're interested in learning, who you are and how to get to where you want to go, I specialize in that. That's literally what I help people do on a daily basis. And it is my great honor to help educate, equip, and inform people on how to be and embody their most aligned version of self, how to liberate themselves and embody the version they want to be. One of my students called me the goddess of reinvention, and another one called me a relentless dreamer. And those have been really guiding stars for me over 2024. The goddess of reinvention just like hit something really deep in me. And that is, you can reinvent yourself at any time. You have to make a decision, and then you have to keep making that decision over and over and over every single day. And it's really that simple in that regard. The whole process of building that out, yeah, you probably need a guide. I'm your guide. If you are like, no, I got this. Thank you so much for the inspiration. And this is where we leave to each other today. But I'm so grateful. Thank you for letting me be your inspiration and your guide as you move into 2025. Please do me a favor. If this was helpful, share with your friends and check out the links below so that you can see where you can get a reading, where you could sign up for that free webinar, and then learn about Awaken if you have any interest in that. Again, if this is where we leave each other, thank you so much for listening and supporting me, my channel, my podcast, and I will see you in our next session.